This next session, our key presenter is going to be Rachel S. Moore, and the title is A Chorus of Voices: Are Individual Diversity Programs Strengthened or Muted Through Collaboration? Let me just introduce the three panelists who will be our responders. First of all, Amy Fitterer, who is the Executive Director of Dance USA. Mary Luisa Carrillo, President and Founder of Ballet Folklorico Moyocoyani Izel. And Phil Chan, Executive Editor at FLATT Magazine, our three guests. And a little bit of introduction for Rachel S. Moore. She was a former member of American Ballet Theatre's Corps de Ballet, starting in 1984, and she has risen to be the Executive Director of ABT in 2004 and its CEO in 2011. How great a story for a movie is that going to be? From Corps de Ballet and 20 years later and a few after that to be the CEO of ABT. She's had leadership positions at many organizations. She has been named White House Presidential Scholar in the Arts, was introduced into the YWCA's Academy of Women's Leaders, has been awarded Distinguished Alumni Awards from both Columbia University's Teacher College and the National Foundation for Advancement in the Arts. Rachel Moore.
Great. Doesn't matter which one I'm on? Okay, good. Okay, let me just get organized here. Well, good morning. I'm so delighted to be here. The issues and discussion about inclusion and diversity is very close to my heart and very close to ABT. And today I want to talk a little bit about a program that we've introduced. Let's see. Oh, we missed some photos. There we go. Project Plie is a program that we've designed to support the diversification of America's ballet companies. You may say, why is this important? Why do we need to do this? Well, in the professional ballet world, if you look at the top 10 largest ballet companies in the world, there is not a single black female principal dancer, and there never has been. And that is a huge problem, and we recognize it, and we wanted to really design a program that was laser focused to address this issue. You may ask, why ABT? Well, we're turning 75 this year, so we've been around for a while. As one of the largest companies in the world, we felt that we had a national and international platform with which we could use to start the discussion around race and ballet. Also, ABT, unlike many ballet companies, has never been wedded to one style, one approach. We sort of embrace the American experiment of having people from all over the world and lots of different balletic styles come together in order to create something unique and special. And so the notion of inclusion has been with us since our very beginning. Now, I know a lot of you here are from the classical music world, and there are similarities and differences, and I thought it might be interesting for you to hear about some of the things that we've talked about as some of the differences between classical music and ballet. One of the opportunities for ballet that isn't quite there for classical music is, frankly, the careers don't last as long, so there's opportunity for people to move up quickly. ABT has an orchestra. We have a 70-year-old French horn player. I can tell you there are no 70-year-olds in the Corps de Ballet, so it's a real opportunity for us. One of the challenges, though, is ballet is as much a performing arts form as it is a visual arts form. So there are issues around aesthetics that we need to address. So, moving forward. I added this photo because I think she's cute as a button. But it's really around who we are and what we believe in. Our core values for the program are that we really do believe that the classical ballet profession should reflect the racial and ethnic diversity of the community. Our vision is we envision a world in which the classical ballet profession really reflects the racial and ethnic diversity of our communities. And our mission statement, American Ballet Theatre recognizes that certain racial and ethnic communities are vastly underrepresented in classical ballet. Our mission is to address this imbalance by identifying talented children and teachers from underrepresented representative communities and providing the participants with comprehensive training and support. This is sort of a grow your own strategy. And I want to, before I go through the elements, really recognize where Project Plie came from. Many years ago, I was the executive director of an organization called Project STEP, which is a classical music school for children of color based in Boston. I learned so much being there, and a lot of the structure of Project Plie came from what Project STEP has been doing in the classical music community. And we've built on it and made it larger and obviously more specific to ballet, but I really want to give a shout out to the Project STEP folks. So our program elements, we have sort of 6. The first is that we really want to strengthen the avenues of identifying and training and supporting talented young dancers of color. We are very specific in this program. This is not an general outreach program, which we do as well, and many wonderful programs exist and have great value. We identify a very clear problem of underrepresentation in the classical music field. We are trying to focus directly on how that can be addressed. And so this is really about trying to identify the kids who are most likely to be competitive when they look to get jobs. And so this is our, trying to find kids that are, have sort of the natural talent that we can train. We also want to work with teachers and teachers of color in the ballet community and provide them the support so that they can also be not only role models, but be part of our community, the ballet community, in a new way. We're partnering with professional ballet companies across the United States so that we can collectively work towards the goal of diversifying ballet. ABT claims that we absolutely do not have all the answers. We may not even have any answers, but we really want to be part of the conversation, and we want to learn both from all of our colleagues in the dance field, but also the classical music field. We are partnering with the Boys and Girls Clubs across the country to introduce ballet to the participants in their clubs and using that as a way to identify gifted children for further training. We're also providing scholarships and fellowships to arts administrators of color, fellowships, internships, to support the back end of the ballet world. It isn't enough that what's on stage is diverse. The whole institution needs to be diverse. And finally, we are clearly trying to advocate for this on a national basis. Our partner companies, we're delighted, and we're always wanting to have more. Ballet Austin, Ballet Memphis, Ballet San Antonio, Ballet San Jose, Ballet Met Columbus, Cincinnati Ballet, Nashville Ballet, Oklahoma City Ballet, Orlando, Pittsburgh, Richmond, and Washington Ballet. While there's underrepresentation of African American dancers in the field, there's also acute underrepresentation of Native Americans, Arab Americans, and while there's many Hispanic Latino dancers in ballet, we have certain communities like the Mexican community that is not represented well. So Project Plie has only been around for a year, but we think we've made a really good start. Our first year successes, that's the Boys and Girls Club. We have these huge summer programs where we bring in kids and we audition about 5,000 kids each year. In year one, depending on the city, we had between a 5 and 10% increase of kids coming to audition to our programs. In the first year, we had 57 kids of color selected for scholarships. We only do merit-based. It's really about, people will say, well, can I get a Project Plie scholarship? It's not about a Project Plie scholarship. It's about Project Plie's way in, but everyone is competitive. We believe have a chance to be competitive in the professional world. 28% of all of our scholarships were awarded to students from underrepresented groups. In our first year with the Boys and Girls Club, which has been wonderful, we had 500 kids involved, and 17 dancers out of that were selected. And what we did is we worked with the local community ballet schools that were of quality, that we felt were of quality, and got them scholarships so they could stay at home, be in their community, and train. We have a national training curriculum, which is about training teachers to give them the tools to be the best ballet teachers possible in terms of having dancers who are happy and healthy. And out of our 1,500 current teachers, we do big training programs. We were able to provide 10 ballet instructors with scholarships to attend the entire training program so that they can be part of that community. We've developed a very special relationship with the Harlem School of the Arts, and they are now an ABT certified school. And one of the sort of additional benefits is that this discussion of diversity and inclusion at ABT has opened up our entire thinking around our organization. And so we, in just the last year, have increased diversity among our administrative staff. I added this because she was just too cute. But we've gotten numerous stories from parents and notices from kids about how this program, even nascent as it is, has been transformative. And here's some of our kids who are more further along. And finally, with lots of great pictures of happy kids and how we are so incredibly excited by the launch of this program and so incredibly grateful to the people who've supported it. It's been astonishing how supportive people have been. But once again, ABT is not claiming to have all the answers. We look to everyone in the community. We want to lock arms with one another to address this issue of the underrepresentation of dancers of color in the field. And we hope that you're part of our dialogue because it'll take all of us to make this change. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. For those of you who weren't here yesterday, this is a beautiful counterpoint to hear is a real practical leadership offer for a whole field through Project Plie. Yesterday, Tim Dang from East West Players proposed what he calls the 2042 challenge to the US theater system. And his challenge there is, by the year 2042, to have the personnel of US theaters represent the US population, so that in fact minority representation, female representation by 2042 actually reflects the population demographics of the country. So here are two strong leadership proposals to change a long-term entrenched, or let's say extremely slow evolving process in the US. Amy, what are your thoughts?
Thank you, Eric, and thank you so much, Rachel, for that really wonderful presentation. Project Plie gets me very excited because maybe the same way Teresa yesterday with TCG was saying about the 51% preparedness program, it's really wonderful to see a major arts institution in our fields taking such a leadership role in a topic that can be very difficult, especially in a visual and performing arts style as ballet. There are some very, very unique challenges to race and ballet, and I love the fact that American Ballet Theatre is not taking this on just within ABT, but by working with the regional ballet companies across America. I'm also very excited by the fact that the program is partnering with the Boys and Girls Club because that is a very respectable institution, and I think we don't have the answers of reaching and creating access, but Boys and Girls Club has a proven history of creating access, and as we know, Misty Copeland, that's how she got involved with dance and then American Ballet Theatre. Another aspect that very much excites me is the fact that the thinking is beyond just ballet, but also about the role of the administrators. I was thinking that all of us sitting here are former dancers, and now we're all in the role of being dance administrators. So not only is Project Plie awarding funds to help dancers excel and administrators excel, but the dancers that get exposed may later, even if they go into completely other careers, become board members and administrators of dance. So I think it's multifaceted in how it's helping to increase the pipeline. And I just want to underscore again, because we are multidisciplinary in this room, the unique challenge that dance does have, in particular ballet, around the aesthetic. And you nailed it when you said this is a visual art as much as it is a performing art. And one of the questions that I was thinking about is around that, and what would happen if Swan Lake looked like a kaleidoscope of skin colors rather than all uniformity. And so what are we really talking about with ballet and changing the skin tones of all the dancers on stage? And to me that says we're talking about changing the aesthetic of ballet, and it becomes an American aesthetic, which I think is very exciting and much needed. Dance USA has been very interested in taking on the issues of equity, inclusion, and diversity, and we've been working hard to try to make change both internally and externally. We have increased the racial and ethnic diversity of our board, and we continue to make that a top priority. We have increased the applicants of color for our job openings. We've established an Institute for Leadership Training, which is a national mentorship program that has also been proactively reaching out to emerging leaders of color. And actually this year it will be 100% reaching out to emerging leaders of color in this mentorship program to increase the pipeline for dance managers of color. As Rachel mentioned some statistics, it is actually true, and it actually came out of a conversation with Rachel. Dance USA did a survey in the fall of 2013 on the demographics of America's ballet dancers, and we did narrow the scope to be for the largest budget dance companies in the United States for ballet only. So we did ask Alvin Ailey company, do you want to participate? And they said, we are not ballet, so they did not get counted. But it was for all 100% companies, minus Ailey, with budgets 7 million and up. It was a total of 660 dancers, 100% response rate. Less than 5% of all of those dancers are Black African American. That means, and as we know, they're not in the principal roles, so those few dancers that are working in our companies are in the core and soloist level. There are about 12% of America's dancers are Latino Hispanic, and there is also a small percentage, around 8% of Asian. We do seem to be more inclusive of Latino, Hispanic, and Asian, but we do have a very serious issue around Black African American, and it was interesting that you mentioned the Mexican and starting to actually go much deeper into the different ethnic backgrounds. I think the bottom line is that our ballet companies do not reflect the demographics of our country. There's also another unique aspect to all of this, though, is that the demographics vary from city to city. So if you speak with a ballet company in the Southwest, where the overwhelming majority of that particular city might be Latino Hispanic, and a very, very small population Black African American, they might be challenged to say, I need to be increasing the Black African American representation in my ballet company. Instead, I need to be increasing the Latino Hispanic representation. So I do think that the conversation changes from the region that you are in. To make the conversation even more complicated beyond ballet, we do have racial and ethnic inclusion problems in the broader dance genres. We don't have the demographic data right now to speak about that, but I can say anecdotally, in my opinion, when I'm traveling around the country, the modern contemporary dance is still heavily white, though we do see more diversity. And I think what's even more concerning, or equally concerning, is that our audiences are overwhelmingly white and overwhelmingly female. And part of that pipeline is that our college dance programs are not inclusive of many different dance genres. So if you speak with the tap makers, to tap and percussive dance artists in our country, they're frustrated because tap is not being taught as a college dance program. And so we also see, as the pipeline gets narrower in the career of a dance artist, it becomes more focused for ballet, contemporary, modern, and white. So there's a lot of levels of where inclusion needs to be addressed. The last point that I'd like to bring up has to do with the life cycle of dance artists of color. As Rachel mentioned, there are a lot of programs for 30, 40, 50 years that have been doing amazing outreach into our communities. And New Orleans Ballet Association's example, that's been reaching over 600 students of color in ballet-based dance programs in the parish of New Orleans. Why haven't we seen these dancers of color become the principal dancers of our big ballet companies? And I think that what we're aware of now is that there is a breaking off point in the middle school and high school year, that students of color, for a variety of reasons, both economic, and we heard Abel last night talk about, well, my parents really kind of wanted me to become a lawyer or a doctor, you know, pursuing a career in the arts, maybe they're leaving the dance field. And so in addition to building the pipeline at the young age, which we have to do across this country, I'm curious to see what can we do now for the students that are getting excelled, they're excellent dancers, and they're in that middle school, high school year. What can we do to keep them in our field so that we don't have to wait another 30 years or 20 years for the face of ballet to change?
Thanks, Amy. Maria Luisa.
Oh, Amy, that's so much information. You said a bunch of things that I particularly enjoyed, the little part where we're all dancers and now we're all here, because it's funny, when I started, so Mexican ballet. Mexican ballet is a little different. We're folkloric, traditional based, but when we started doing this, my husband and I, when we first started teaching, we had, our program is free for the community. We've always reached out to whoever's around, you know, and we never, Mexican ballet is not just for Mexicans, you know, anybody is welcome. I'm so serious. We've had black people, white people, Polish, you know, Irish, you know, just because they enjoy the art and the culture, so they're a part of it, and we absolutely adore having that diversity. And one particular little girl, she's here, I'm not gonna point her out because she'll be embarrassed, but one particular little girl started dancing with us when she was about 6 years old. And she's Polish. Her dad just brought her and he's like, you know what, my daughter needs to do something, you know, we're in Detroit, we're the smack middle of all these, you know, gang fights and just not a really good area. And her dad said, I need her to do something. I don't want her just coming home, you know, can she just come dance with you? We said, absolutely, sure she could come dance with us. So she was 6 and now she's, sorry, I do have to call you out. She's what, 23? 24, she's 24. She's 24 now, and she has continued to dance, and she has now kind of flipped the role and sits on the board for my dance group. And she is very much so involved in helping keep the art alive and helping reach out to different people and helping bring them into, you know, want to do what she did as well. But she had a career shift. You know what I mean? Just like I did. I'm not a professional Mexican ballet teacher. You know, I'm a master in public health. You know, she's a nurse. She works for a public health program. Do you know what I mean? And everybody at our board actually sits very diverse. We don't have anybody that is ballet or arts or dance or anything specialist at all. And I think that's so important because I can say from my own experience, you know, what we hear as children is that's a hobby. That's not a career, it's a hobby. Do you know what I mean? So to see you guys want to reach out and kind of, you know, hold on to that and give hope and inspiration to people, to communities like mine, I applaud you and I thank you. I truly do, because that means a lot, not just for my kids that, you know, that want to do something, like, because, you know, well, I don't know if you know, but the way our kids are, you know, you have some that are just there, kind of just thrown in there. They're there, they kind of like it, they kind of don't. But then you have a select few that are phenomenal dancers. And I just wish I could do something for them, and I really can't. I really can't, and that's where you guys come in, and I'm really excited about Project Plie, and I'm really excited. I'd like to talk to you afterwards to see exactly what you're doing in Detroit so I can push my kids to you. Yeah, you know, and on top of that, I'm jumping all around, I'm not as organized as Amy. But what I did want to say was, Mexico in itself is diverse. And we teach that wherever we go, anytime we're performing, anywhere we go, we always want to emphasize that. Mexico is diverse. We are probably one of the most diverse Hispanic populations there is. Why? Because you have your Mexican, you have your Indians, your indigenous people, you know, that dark skin, long, dark hair. Then you have Spain that came and conquered. So we have a huge mix. You've got Mexicans with blonde hair, blue eyes. You've got Mexicans with black skin and black hair. Don't tell them they're black, they are Mexican. You ever been to Acapulco? You ever been to that coast, that Pacific, right there on the shore? That you have black Mexicans. So we have one little boy who's dancing with us too. He's Irish. He's red hair, freckled face. His, I don't know, father, removed, cousin, whatever, has some Mexican in him. So he's like, I'm Mexican, I'm Mexican. I'm like, you don't have to be Mexican, who cares? You can come dance with us. But I take offense when people say, hey, is that boy right there Mexican? What tells you he is or isn't? You know, just from what you're looking at? You know, that to me, I always take that to heart. People say, she's Mexican. How do you know I'm Mexican? You know what I mean? Someone talks to me in Spanish. How do you know I speak Spanish? I always think that's hilarious. So I wanted to make sure I emphasize that Mexico is diverse, people. It is diverse. And it's all about, I really do think when you talk about race and ethnicity, it's all about your own identification. It really is. Because you have people that have Mexican blood that have been here for 5, 6, and 8 generations. They identify as American, not Mexican. You know, so it really does have a lot to do with your own identification, you know. And again, you know, I'm not going to take more time. I'm going to let you talk, because I'm sure you have a lot more intellectual things to say. But, you know, I thank you and I applaud you, especially for this program. That's excellent. I'm really excited for what it means for my community. Absolutely.
Thanks. Phil?
I think that, Rachel, you touched on a lot of things, but I think that both here at Sphinx and Project Plie, any diversity arts organization with the goal of improving diversity has to focus on 2 things. I think that economics and economic inequality along racial lines is a huge thing. And the second thing is representation. I wrote about this in the Huffington Post. It came out yesterday, so if you want a little bit more information, you can check it out there. But I think that the cost of becoming a ballet student is so expensive. So if the median income for a white family is 20 times that of a black family in the United States, with that extra money, what are your kids going to do after school? You know, white families can say, oh, my daughter can participate in ballet recreationally. That's fine. That's something that we do. Whereas an African American family might have problems because the cost of tights, the cost of shoes, the cost of traveling to the studio, the cost of summer programs, the cost of flying to London to audition for the Royal Ballet, then San Francisco to audition for San Francisco Ballet. It's not going to happen. Even if you're the most talented, beautiful dancer in the world, you know, the tree falls in the woods. If no one's around, you're not going to get a job with a ballet company. So I think that diversity organizations, you know, including Sphinx, we need to really look at the economic inequalities and how we as organizations are addressing those. Are we working with our dance manufacturers to make point shoes cost-effective for young students? Dance wear, I mean, nobody can show up to a dance class in sweatpants, you know, it doesn't feel the same. So how are we addressing that? And then the other thing is representation. I mean, my father had 9 brothers and sisters. They grew up in Hong Kong, and they were, it was very tough for them. They shared one bath, so the oldest son would go in the bath first. So by the time the youngest daughter came in, it was like, there's no point in taking a bath. So when we came, well, seriously, like black water. So when we came to the United States, a lot of my cousins, they didn't have the opportunity to explore a career in the arts. It just wasn't available to them because, you know, it was lucky enough that we came to America. It was lucky enough that we were even able to go to college, let alone to do something as frivolous as the arts. You know, we have to make money. Our parents gave up so much, sacrificed so much to come here. And for us not to be doctors and lawyers is kind of a slap in the face to our family. So having to convince my family that there's a choice, that the arts are important. I remember when I double majored in dance, my dad said, well, how much more is it going to cost? I said, no, it costs the same to double major. He said, oh, that's smart, good economics. You know? But I think he wished I could have been like a doctor too. But so those are issues that I think dancers of color and their families often grapple with that maybe, you know, privileged students just don't. So I think that we really need to look at those 2 areas. And I think one last thing is, and I've been asking myself this, is are there no black dancers on stage because we don't have young black dancers in the audience who see them and want to grow up to that? Or do we not have young dancers on stage because there's no role models on stage? So it's sort of a vicious cycle. So we need to start finding solutions to break that cycle. Just one more point. I was the former general manager for Youth America Grand Prix, which is the world's largest scholarship, dance scholarship program for ballet. And one thing that they're doing that's revolutionary is they're addressing the class issue head on. Okay, so they're realizing that in order to join San Francisco Ballet, ABT, the Royal Ballet, you need to be seen by these people. So it doesn't matter how good you are as a dancer. If you aren't seen by the head of Houston Ballet, you're not going to get a job at Houston Ballet. That's simple. So even the cost of airfare and hotel to be seen is often prohibitive to many people. So that's just one area that the dance community is trying to address that inequality. But there's so many levels, from getting the first foot in the door with early education, all the way to nurturing them, making sure they have room and board, a solid place to live, a solid family system, whether that's in a home or with a school, you know, like room and board at a boarding school. But how are we nurturing our dancers from their very first plie all the way through connecting them with professional opportunities that will end up empowering them to become the principal dancers of tomorrow?
That's a really good note to open it out for questions you may have. This sort of systemic view that kept coming up and reflected in all 4 comments. Project Plie taking 6 angles of intervention to actually disrupt, using a word from earlier, an established system. Each piece contributing to the way that it is. How can this project and all the different angles of influence we've heard here, how can that be changed? First question, right over here. Stand up, please, and take a mic.
Hi, I'm Kavana Schufert. I used to, as a young student, I grew up in dance, and from 3 up until 15, I did dance. So I was at the studio a number of hours a day, improving my craft. And I noticed as I was growing up in the dance world that a lot of times students of color were placed into like a certain style of dance because they felt that they were better fit for that style. So I'm wondering, how are you ensuring that these students are not like stuck in a category based on their skin tone, and that they are becoming like principal dancers of the big companies?
Thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think that the choice of which dance form needs to come from the kid, what's of interest to them. I mean, certainly at ABT, we're primarily about ballet. We do have modern dances and character dance and what have you. I do think that you make an interesting point, though, which I've actually had some conversations with people in the field about, and one of the topics that we're trying to address with our teacher training program is that one of the very powerful gatekeepers is the teacher in the classroom, and the explicit and not so explicit ways that they treat dancers of color differently. They may not even know they're doing it. And trying to bring that issue out front and open and talk about it so that people can understand. And you know, ballet teachers will say, oh, well, I think that Kevin McKenzie's our artistic director. This is what I think Kevin wants. And so she will or he will try to look for dancers that he thinks that Kevin will want. Well, that's, you know, that's crazy. But I think that that's also a very common notion of this preconceived view of what classical ballet companies want in a certain kind of look or body type. And I will also say on the body type thing, which is a huge thing, a huge discussion, there is definitely an aesthetic in the ballet world. Beautiful arched feet, long neck, long limbs, but my view is more of this country looks like Honey Boo Boo than like a principal ballet dancer in American Ballet Theatre. So I don't think that it's about color. I think it's about lots of other stuff. And Misty Copeland, who is a soloist at ABT, is a prime example of this gorgeous dancer of color who has all the attributes of any classical ballerina, of any, you know, classical white, Russian, what have you. So I think that we're trying to dispel that as well, that there are body types and you should go into a certain kind of dance with a certain kind of body type.
I think to piggyback off of that too, even the definition of what is a perfect ballerina has changed so much. I mean, Marie Taglioni, who's, you know, the great classical ballerina, she was the first one to go on point. She was described as a hunchback by her peers and a little chubby. Okay, so she would never get a job today, yet she was this inspirational, you know, ballerina for many people, defined a generation of what romantic ballet is. So, you know, if we have these changing definitions of what is beautiful and who can perform these roles, why are we excluding skin color in the look of ballet when there's so much diversity within body types themselves in ballet.
Questions?
There's one over there.
A lot of
I'm
questions.
missing it.
There.
There it is, there it is.
Hi, I'm Janice Goldthorpe from Rochester, New York. I grew up as a ballet dancer. I was one of those 3-year-old to 15-year-old dancers. I danced with FLATT Ballet Theatre for a while. Then I went off and I did my thing too. I ended up being an engineer and did that for 24 years. Now I'm head of a visual arts organization. So I kind of did this full circle. But what I didn't hear anybody talking about was the use of technology at all. So, you know, you had these barriers to if you're not seen, you didn't exist. So how are we using technology, or is anyone thinking about that as a way to get the dancer in front of more sets of eyes?
Videotapes? Videotapes, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, videotaping is very common for auditions. We have video auditions as well. I think that Phil's talking about much more fundamental access, and I think it's even getting to the audition, the transportation, even with technology having access to a studio where you could actually film something adequately to be fairly judged.
Right.
And as an aside, the ballet world the dance world really struggles with technology because dance on film is deadly, generally speaking. And we have not figured out how to use technology effectively as a field. So, I mean, I think that points to an even bigger issue within our field.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because dance is so popular in America, in particular because of the explosion of dance on TV. But the dance genres that we're seeing are not ballet, right? So all the ballet companies have fantastic YouTube pages. They have tons of really interesting videos. It is true. If you're really critical in the dance field, you look at that and like, that is terrible. I don't want to see dance on tape. So it might be an opportunity for more people to see ballet, but until the color of the dancers and the body types change, they might take one glance at a video on YouTube and go, that's not me. That's not for me. So, but it's an excellent point that I think that we
I
should
have to say
take more
something too,
consideration.
if I
Please,
can I take a turn?
please.
So in Mexico, Mexican ballet is part of the curriculum in school. So you've got kids that hate dancing, but they have to because it's part of their class. So I'd be interested to know if there's any way to kind of get in front of a forum or somehow, and you probably couldn't just say, hey, let's start a ballet class. It'd probably be like arts, I don't know, some sort of semester, this, that, whatever, kind of dabble in a little bit of all types of dance. And I think that'd be a really good way to expose everybody to a little bit of everything in dance. Do you know what I mean? And I'd be really, I don't know why it's not part of like regular curriculum, like the arts, you know what I mean, as part of, my little girl, she's 5, she has art, and she comes home with like, cotton stuck on a paper, and it's like, it's my art project, and to really diversify what art is in the school system, I think would be the excellent way to really show and expose the people that we're trying to reach out to.
I think there's a lot of people who are trying to get that to happen,
Yeah.
especially in the public schools, and certainly a huge topic around the evisceration of art in schools. And I think we and every company I know has programs where they go into the schools and try to do stuff. With dance, it is harder in that you need clear space. You need space to do it, and that's a huge problem for a lot of places. And what kind of floor? You don't want to jump on tile. And so, but there's some people who've been doing wonderful work to try to keep dance alive in the arts education. But I think it's a battle across fields, not just in dance.
And as was brought up poignantly in the last panel, the generation before, my generation, it was required. In fact,
and see how fabulous you are?
Yeah, right. I had to, there was required dance
Yeah.
chunk, there was required music chunk, and in fact it was an employment requirement for elementary school teachers that they play the piano. when I grew up. You couldn't be hired as a certified kindergarten teacher unless you were basically competent on the piano, so that singing would be a part of the kindergarten classroom. But we have a whole generation of families now that don't have that in their upbringing. Consequently, their own experience-based decision-making doesn't incline that way. Other questions in a remaining few minutes? Yes, right here.
Hi.
Please stand.
Stand? Okay.
And that's so that the streaming video can catch
Oh,
it.
okay. Hi, I'm Leah Quintiliano. I'm the Diversity Program Manager at the School of American Ballet. And I have a question for you. So when we talk about diversity inclusion, we often talk about the half of getting minority students of color to participate. But we often don't talk about the other half, which is addressing these perverse, these ideas that prevail amongst white students about what it means to be a ballet dancer, what someone should look like in their tights and their leotard if their feet don't point correctly. And I was wondering what your ideas were behind or about addressing those ideas that exist still amongst the dance community, amongst families, amongst younger children even, that you see in ballet schools all over the place, from students who come from areas where it's not very diverse, so maybe they don't grow up around anybody who's Black or Hispanic or Asian. What do you think about addressing that, or that as a part of ameliorating the situation?
Well, I think that the more kids that are in the classes with them, that those things will dispel quickly. And so it's really about getting kids in the classes with, so that you have diverse classes from age 8 and above. Age 8 is when you really start your serious training. And I think that going back to the teacher thing, I think that there's some of the stereotypes that are perpetuated by that. I will say that Misty Copeland has done extraordinary things, and one of the interesting pieces for us is when she's performing at the Metropolitan Opera House, which has 4,000 seats, you look out in the audience and it's a very, very different audience than when Paulina Semenyova dances. It's much more diverse. It's thrilling to see this incredibly engaged audience there to cheer Misty on, but also Misty's breaking these stereotypes of what it means to be a classical ballerina in a major company. And I think that in this May, when we open our season, Misty will be doing the lead in Swan Lake at the Metropolitan Opera House, and this will be a watershed moment for a major classical ballet company, and that show is almost now sold out because so many people want to be there in support of her. And I think that the more kids see somebody who looks like them on stage, or somebody that they'll want to come, and then the white kids who see Misty are just as adoring of her as the kids of color, because she's an extraordinary artist and she's beautiful and she transforms the stage. And so I think that's how we're going to slowly change it, is by having people who look different all in the same place.
We're just out of time, so we have to leave it at that image of Misty Copeland, opening night, Swan Lake, coming soon. Thank you to our panelists.